What's up, Gear Immortals? Trey Xavier here, back with yet another Superior Drummer 3 tutorial. Today we're looking at a very cool feature that's been added in Superior Drummer 3 that has yet to appear in any Toontrack product, which is really awesome, and that's the ability to add third-party drum samples to your drum kit. It is a pretty simple process to add third-party samples into the drum kit. The most basic and easy way to do it is ye old drag and drop. So I'm going to grab this big snare sample from a sample library that I did while recording an album that I was on. And so you can just literally drag the file right onto one of the drums in Superior Drummer 3. And then this little menu comes up, add stack, replace, or add instrument. So what we're going to do for the moment is add stack. And what that does is it's going to add our sample onto the sample the sample library that's on that snare drum. So in this case, we're using the Superior Drummer 3 core library. So what we have now is two snare drums layered on top of each other. So as you can hear, they are flamming together, and the reason for that is that the samples start at different times. The Superior Drummer SDX kits are, of course, all perfectly phase aligned. Everything is lined up perfectly exactly where it's supposed to be. This sample that I just made myself and randomly dragged in here is not lined up with all the other ones. That's an easy fix. All we have to do is grab this button right here, and that's going to give us a chance to edit different stuff about the sample that we just loaded in. So what we have here over here is the envelope and offset. So what that does is the offset allows us to drag the sample back and forth in time and line it up with the other drum sample if we want. So check this out. So now all I did was drag it back a bit, and it seems to be lined up much better. We can go the other way, and they can go worse. You can also do it so that the attack of the drum is basically gone, because it drags it kind of past where the initial attack happens. So it's probably not going to take that much to get it basically where we need it to be. So now if I think that my sample is too loud and I just want it a little bit there to reinforce the initial sample, I can turn it down using the level. Okay, so there's the initial sample. A little bit more of my own. Kind of even it out a bit, blend them in a way that I like. And then we can hear that the tuning of the two drums is not the same. So I'm going to go ahead and they sound about a half step off to me. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and take it down one semitone. Now they should be matched up. That sounds much better. Now when you're loading these samples in, be aware that they are all going to be one-shots. Now every sample in Superior Drummer that comes with it is going to be round robin, which means it's got a whole bunch of different samples for each velocity layer, and every time you hit it, it plays a different sample. Now you've layered in just the one sample, so it's going to play that same one every time. That's really only a limitation if what you're doing is trying to replace the entire drum set with your own samples, which you of course can do, but it's just going to be a little one-dimensional. So then pretty much anything you can do to any of the drums in Superior Drummer 3, you can do to the samples that you load in, including changing the pitch, the level, MIDI mapping, all this different stuff that is in this little menu here. It'll really allow you to dial in the samples that you're bringing in to match the kit that you're using within Superior. So the other really easy way to add in your samples is to just make sure you have the drum highlighted that you want to replace or augment, and then you go up to Add Instrument, Import Audio File, find the library where you've got them, and then grab the sample that you're looking for. What I want to try this time is to use the replace function that's going to replace the snare sound entirely with just the one that we're loading in. So that is a huge snare drum sample sound. I think that probably has a ton of room mic in it and all kinds of stuff. It's a cool sound. I don't really think it stands on its own to use as our sole snare sample, especially if we do anything more complicated than whole notes. But if you're trying to get the perfect snare sound, you might want to layer in a bunch of different kinds of sounds, and this might be one of the layers that you want to use. If that's the case, then the replace function is not the one you're going to want to use. So now we're going to try the add instrument function when we bring in a new sample. So basically what that does is it augments your kit by adding basically an entire other drum. It's almost like having a separate MIDI pad that you can use to trigger any sound. You could import a fart sound, a symphony of farts if you wanted, you know, a giraffe screaming, like whatever floats your boat, whatever you need, hand claps, anything like that. Maybe there's some instrument that only happens one time in the whole song and you just need it there for this one time and you don't want it to be layered onto any of the other sounds you're going to use because it'll just get in the way. That's when you use that function. No matter what import option you use, you can of course manipulate any of the sounds that you've imported using this menu over here on the right. Let's say there's a crash sound that you just have to have. You can just grab it, drag it in, drop it there, replace, boom. It's that quick and it's that easy. In previous tutorials, I've talked about how Superior 3 is kind of like a DAW within a DAW. And this really comes into play here because you're not loading these samples into your DAW first and then loading them into Superior 3. You can just drag and drop or load them directly into Superior, and that's where they live. This is especially cool because you can use the standalone version of Superior Drummer 3 in the same way, and then you can use it with your electronic kit for live performance. Probably one of the best ways to use your own samples within this kind of environment is to use it at certain velocity levels. So what you're going to do to have it trigger only at certain velocities is to use the velocity gate feature. So you turn that on, and then you can set a range for the velocity that it's going to go off at. Okay, so I just want this to go off as a huge backbeat kind of a sound. So only when I smack the crap out of it is it going to come to life. So now my sample is only going to trigger when we hit it above 121. So what I've done now is added 4 different layers of snare. And what I'm going to do is I've got a big one, a medium, a small one, and a tiny one. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to set each of them to a certain range of velocity that they'll go off at, so it's a little more realistic. These are from the same snare, same sample library, played by the same drummer. So I've set this big one to go off just when it's hit at 121 or above. So I'm going to set this medium one to go off between 80 and 121. And then this smaller one is going to go off between 80 and, we'll say, 40. I'm just kind of making these numbers up. You can set them wherever you like. And then this tiny one is going to be anything below 40. Boom. Now we've got a multi-layered, multi-velocity sample going with the same sample library stacked onto the Superior Drummer library. So this option allows you to basically infinitely expand the Superior Drummer library and the sounds that you're using. It's incredibly flexible. It's really easy to use. It's really stupid easy to do this. It really just takes a couple minutes to be able to work your way around the setup. In almost no time at all, you're going to be able to layer in your own samples and really get your Superior Drummer 3 library cooking. All right, guys, thanks so much for watching. I really hope this helped you out. If you're looking for more Superior Drummer 3 tutorials, I'm doing a whole series on them, so keep an eye on this playlist right here, or be sure to subscribe down below for more of these and for more original content. And I'll see you real soon.